Today on the CTV News at 5. Despite protesters' best efforts, clear-cut logging is underway near Castle Mountain. Plus, new stats show Lethbridge is making progress in its plan to end homelessness. And
doesn't feel very good.
Fraud case closed. Reaction from members of a city archery club that lost their facility because of internal fraud.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Logging equipment is sitting idle at this moment at the site of the future logging in the Castle Mountain Special Area. Protesters have spent the last couple of weeks trying to get the government to stop Spray Lake sawmills from moving in. And today they took their fight from the forest to the city. Terry Boat reports.
For now, the logging equipment is parked. Local demonstrators remain on site, refusing to heed warnings and notices posted by Alberta Sustainable Resource Development.
They asked us to move out of the way, and we asked them to change their minds, more or less.
The forestry officer came up and read us the riot act, advised us we'd be trespassing, asked if we would move to the side. And when we said we didn't intend to, I guess it really amounted to us calling their bluff, and they just turned the equipment off, turned it around, and eventually went away.
This is the 12th hour for the Castle Forest. We will never have another good place like this in our lifetimes. So a lot of dedicated people have really made an effort this time to make sure this logging project does not start.
As the protesters marked their 13th day on site, local business owners took their message to Lethbridge, holding a news conference at the same hotel where Alberta cabinet ministers were meeting with business and community leaders.
90% of our business caters to the tourism industry. Take away the trees, take away our livelihood.
Well, the way they log is very messy. It's all about profit.
No local businesses will profit from the destroying of this forest. Certainly no plants, animals, or waterways will be improved or protected.
I know that tourism is critically important in the province, and we want to manage and maintain that.
Advanced Education Minister Greg Weddick isn't making any commitments about an effort to stop logging in the area, but he says the government is working with landowners and stakeholders. He says long-term planning is the key to protecting resources, the watershed, forests, as well as jobs in southwestern Alberta. Terry Vogt, CTV News, Lethbridge.
We caught up with Premier Alison Redford today and asked what she thinks about the clear-cut logging in the Castle Mountain Special Area. Here's what she had to say.
It is an issue where we have to balance environment and economic development. The Castle area is under a forest management agreement. It's a strong forest management agreement. 2/3 of that area is protected area and no forestry activity takes place. The other third, there is forestry activity, and there's a percentage of that area, I think it's 6 or 7% that's logged annually. We're going to continue with that agreement. We believe that it's a sound agreement.
New numbers show homelessness in Lethbridge has dropped 34% since 2010. The Social Housing in Action Committee released the results today. In 2009, the group launched a project that would see an end to homelessness in 5 years. This is the third year of that plan. The committee has a number of programs in place to help get and keep people off the streets. Their only concern is keeping the momentum going.
There are some folks out there that have more difficult problems that we need to tackle, and we've been able to deal with that up to this point in time. But our fear is that folks will begin to think that we don't need to put a lot of, continue to put the kind of money that's been put into it in the future.
And the city and county of Lethbridge are exploring the possibility of a joint ownership agreement for the Lethbridge County Airport. An airport study is recommending changes to the ownership and operation of the airport to generate additional revenue and encourage more economic development at the airport. Another key recommendation of the study is the establishment of an airport commission to operate the facility. Now, both city and county officials say the airport is critical to growth in southern Alberta.
I think in terms of economic development for the region of Lethbridge and southern Alberta, the airport is an absolutely essential item. Anybody you speak to about economic development or moving and attracting a new business into the area, the first question everybody asks is, do you have a viable airport?
Well, there's two parts, of course, to the airport as well. There's the flights in and out, but there are also commercial possibilities with respect to the land. So if you can get avionics, aviation industry, businesses out at the airport lands, that would be attractive as well.
Council is hoping to have a report on the issue completed within 6 months. Environment Canada has issued a wind warning for southern Alberta. It goes from the Crow's Nest Pass straight through to the Saskatchewan border. Winds are expected to gust up to 100 kilometers per hour tonight and tomorrow. Well, Dory, some parts of the country are dealing with some pretty severe winter weather right now, but southern Alberta isn't. Wind, yes, but not severe winter weather.
Yeah, that's right, Jackie. We are looking at the winds, and thanks for sticking me in right after the wind warning. Big surprise, wind warning in southern Alberta. Yeah, the usual suspects, right across southern Alberta, we are looking at that wind to increase tonight, but we're not looking at snow. There's areas just to the west of us in Elk Valley and Kootenay Lake area that are looking at heavy snowfall warnings, so we're not getting that. So yes, it's always worse somewhere else, and we'll tell you all about it in a couple of minutes.
I'm looking out for you, Dory. I like to keep you and the weather all together. Yes. Coming up next, the former treasurer of the Lethbridge Bow Benders Club has been sentenced to house arrest for stealing $9,000 from the not-for-profit organization. Today, members of the club showed up to the Lethbridge Provincial Courthouse to watch the proceedings. Court heard between January 2010 and February 2011. Anita Wojcik took money from the club. The organization says they didn't notice the discrepancies until a new treasurer was brought in. The Bow Benders did their own audit, and Wojcik was charged. Today, she pleaded guilty to one count of fraud over $5,000. She was handed a conditional sentence, 4 months that will be under house arrest. Wojcik must also complete 40 hours of community service and pay back $9,000. President Jude Huey says this has been a difficult time for the organization.
The greatest impact is the trust. Archers and we're a big family, and to have somebody in the family steal from you and the trust is just lost, and so then everybody else in the club feels that they're being watched too, and it doesn't feel very good.
Huey says losing the money forced the club to close their archery facility and cancel their kids program. She's hopeful that the end of the court case will mean a fresh start for the club. The Sparwood man charged in the abduction of 3-year-old Keenan Hebert has been sentenced to 30 days behind bars. In a separate incident, Randall Hopley pleaded guilty in a Cranbrook courtroom to breach of probation. A second breach charge was stayed. The charges were laid when Hopley failed to report to his probation officer during a massive manhunt for him in September. The 46-year-old was on probation for a prior conviction of break and enter in cabins in the Crow's Nest Pass. Hopley is currently in custody, waiting to deal with charges of breaking and entering, abduction, and kidnapping. His next court date is February 20th. An appeal is scheduled to wrap up in the case of Métis hunting rights in December. Gary Hirscorn was convicted of hunting out of season in the Cypress Hills. His lawyer has argued that as a Métis, his hunting rights are year-round. The judge in the case ruled there wasn't enough evidence of historical Métis settlements in southern regions. Right now, the province only recognizes the Métis' right to hunt in northern Alberta. The case has now gone to the Alberta Court of Appeal. A hearing date has yet to be determined. Well, a historic meeting is underway in Ottawa, and the chief of the Blood Tribe is part of it. Native leaders are meeting with federal representatives. First Nations leaders hope the summit can produce a two-track approach to deliver both short-term fixes for immediate crisis and progress towards a fundamentally different long-term relationship. But some chiefs are worried that little will be accomplished. The Prime Minister spoke briefly, saying aggressive action is needed to improve living conditions on First Nations. Blood Tribe Chief Charles Weaselhead is in Ottawa attending the summit. Alberta Finance Minister Ron Lethbridge says the Wild Rose Party is using desperation tactics in new radio ads, raising concerns about the possibility of a sales tax in the upcoming budget. Premier Alison Redford and other cabinet ministers are touring the province this week, meeting with business groups, community organizations, and elected officials. Following a meeting with the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, Lethbridge was asked to comment on the Wild Rose attack ads.
I think when opposition parties have to revert to lies, it shows desperation. And I think that I would put that in that category. I haven't heard the particular ad that you refer to, but I would put it under the desperation category based on lies. And Albertans are not foolish enough to believe those lies.
Well, the Canadian beef business is looking overseas as it continues to adjust to the weight of a strong dollar, soaring production costs and sagging profit margins cutting into the industry's finances. One ballooning export market is Russia, where the country's growing middle class is looking for new proteins to pile on their plates. And a southern Alberta rancher is among those trying to help. We get more in this week's edition of Farm.tv.
In early 2011, Pincher Creek rancher Quinton Stevick had the opportunity to fly to Russia to work with some Canadian Angus cattle that had been sold to the Russian company Agrifirma. In October 2011, Quinton had another opportunity to travel to Russia, but this time he went with the cattle by sea.
It's amazing how big shipping is. Like, you know, I grew up in North Dakota and I lived in Alberta, so it's a long ways from water. You know, I've seen pictures of ships, but I really hadn't been on other than a cruise before, what it was like, and it's a big, big deal.
What kind of ship was it?
These ships are specifically designed and built for hauling livestock, specifically cattle. And everything about the ship is designed for one purpose, to transport animals, generally cattle, from point A to point B. And of course, they're a perishable product, and you have to feed them, and you have to water them, and you have to doctor them, and there's no facilities on this ship. So you've got to make do. And once you get out on the ocean, there is no pulling over to the local vet store and getting something you forgot.
Quinton is going back to Russia in February 2012 to again help the Russians work with the Canadian cattle. But this time, he's flying over.
I know one thing, I would not be a sailor.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
And discussions about the EU debt crisis is causing uncertainty in the markets today. A lot of down arrows to show you.